The huge room was full of strange sounds. Clicks, hums, and weird music filled the air as beings from across the galaxy talked to each other. Some looked like giant bugs. Others were made of crystal that sparkled in the light. A few were just floating balls of gas that changed colors when they spoke. Jake Morrison sat in a small corner with the other humans. He pulled at his collar and wished he was back on Earth. The Galactic Council building was massive. It was bigger than any city he had ever seen. The walls were made of some kind of metal that seemed to glow from the inside. Strange symbols moved across the surface like living things. "I still can't believe we're here," whispered Lisa Carter. She was Earth's top diplomat. She had spent years learning about alien cultures. But being here in person was different from reading about it in books. The human section was tiny compared to the others. They had only been part of the Galactic Council for 2 years. Most of the other species had been here for thousands of years. Some had been here since before humans learned to make fire. A loud gong sound filled the room. All the talking stopped. Everyone turned to look at the center of the room. A platform rose from the floor. On it stood Council Prime Vexthal. He was a Zenthari, one of the crystal beings. His body was clear like diamond, but with blue light running through it like veins. "Members of the Galactic Council," Vexthal said. His voice came from speakers around the room. The Zenthari didn't have mouths like humans. They spoke by making their crystals vibrate. "Today we gather for an important ceremony. The time has come to choose new Supreme Coordinators." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Every few hundred years, the Council picked one species to be in charge of everything. It was mostly just for show, but it came with real power. The Supreme Coordinators could make rules that everyone had to follow. They could send ships to stop wars. They could decide how trade worked between worlds. For the past 400 years, the Zenthari had been in charge. They were careful and slow. They liked to think about things for months before making any choice. During their time as leaders, the galaxy had been peaceful but boring. Nothing much happened. Problems got talked about for years but rarely got fixed. "The Zenthari have served with honor," Vexthal continued. "But our time is ending. We have chosen our successors based on careful study. The new Supreme Coordinators must be fresh. They must bring new ideas. They must be willing to take action." A Corvan delegate made a sound like grinding metal. The Corvans were a warrior species. They had been hoping to get picked. Their ships were strong and their armies were fierce. Many people thought they would be the obvious choice. The Zirian trade masters' tentacles waved in the air. The Zirians controlled most of the galaxy's business. They had been working behind the scenes for decades to get this position. Their ships carried goods between worlds. They knew everyone and had deals with every government. After much discussion, Vexthal said, "We have reached our decision." The room got very quiet. Jake could hear his own breathing. Next to him, Lisa gripped her chair so hard her knuckles turned white. Neither of them expected to hear their species name. Humans were too new, too young, too different. The new Supreme Coordinators will be the humans of Earth. For a moment, no one made any sound. Then the room exploded with noise. Some species cheered. Others made angry sounds. The Corvan delegate roared so loud the floor shook. The Zirian's tentacles turned purple with rage. Jake Quotes' mouth fell open. He looked at Lisa, who looked just as shocked as he felt. Around them, the other human delegates stared at each other with wide eyes. None of them had seen this coming. "This is a mistake," the Corvan delegate shouted. "Humans are babies. They just learned to travel between stars. How can they lead us?" "The decision is made," Vexthal said. His crystal body flashed brighter. "The humans have shown something we have not seen in centuries. They take action quickly. They solve problems instead of just talking about them. They are not afraid to try new things." A Zenthari aide floated over to the human section. She was carrying a crystal box that glowed with soft light. Inside was a small crystal sphere covered with symbols that moved and shifted like they were alive. "Ambassador Carter," Vexthal said, "please accept the data crystal of authority. With it comes the power and responsibility to guide our galaxy." Lisa stood up on shaky legs. She walked to the center of the room. Every eye in the place was on her. Some were friendly, many were not. She took the crystal box with both hands. It was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "On behalf of humanity and Earth," Lisa said, her voice carrying through the room, "we accept this honor. We promise to serve all species fairly. We will work to make the galaxy a better place for everyone." The Xanthari delegates started a slow clap. Soon other species joined in. Not all of them, but enough to make it sound like approval. The Corvans sat in angry silence. The Xerians were already talking quietly among themselves, probably planning how to work with the new situation. As the ceremony ended, Jake felt a mix of excitement and fear. Humans were now in charge of the entire galaxy. They had power over thousands of worlds and millions of species. The other council members were already making plans to go on long vacations. They thought humans would be slow and careful like the Xanthari had been. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Lisa walked back to the human section, still holding the crystal. It was getting warmer in her hands. Small symbols were appearing on its surface, showing her information about fleets and worlds and problems that needed attention. "What have we gotten ourselves into?" she whispered to Jake. He looked around the room at all the alien faces. Some looked worried, others seemed curious. A few appeared to be already planning how to take advantage of what they saw as inexperienced new leaders. "I guess we're about to find out," Jake said. He had a feeling their lives had just gotten a lot more complicated. 2 days later, President Kevin Brooks called an emergency meeting. Every human leader who mattered was there. They sat around a big table in the temporary Earth headquarters on Council Station. The room was small compared to the alien meeting halls, but it felt more comfortable. It had Earth plants and pictures of home on the walls. "Okay, people," Kevin said, looking around the table. "We're in charge now. The whole galaxy is watching to see what we do next. The Xanthari took 4 months to make their first decision. I say we start today." Admiral Tracy Nelson leaned forward. She was the head of Earth's small space navy. Now she was supposed to be in charge of fleets from hundreds of worlds. "The Galactic Defense Force sent me their reports. These people haven't had a real military drill in 50 years. Their ships are beautiful, but they fly them like they're afraid of breaking something." "What do you want to do about it?" Kevin asked. "Joint training exercises, starting next week. Every ship, every crew working together. I want to see what these aliens can really do when they're pushed." Dr. Rachel Green, Earth's top scientist, was reading from a tablet. "The Science Council has a list of research projects they've been debating for decades. Faster engines, better weapons, ways to terraform dead worlds. They keep saying it's too dangerous or too expensive." "And," Kevin said, "I say we fund all of it. Let's see what happens when people stop being afraid to try things." Commander Steve Parker had been quiet until now. He handled trade and business deals. "The Xerians have this system where it takes 6 months to get permission to move cargo between systems. 6 months. We could cut that down to 6 days if we just got rid of half the paperwork." Kevin smiled. He liked what he was hearing. "Do it. All of it. Tracy, start your war games. Rachel, fund those crazy science projects. Steve, fix the trade mess. What's the worst that could happen?" The next morning, every species in the galaxy woke up to find humans had been busy. Admiral Nelson's first order went out to every military commander in the galaxy. All ships were to report for joint training exercises within the week. No exceptions. Commander Zixtal of the Altarian Defense Fleet read the order 3 times. His people were peaceful. Their ships were designed for exploration, not fighting. He had never fired a weapon outside of basic training. Now he was supposed to work with human soldiers who treated war like a sport. The Xerion Trade Guild got a message that made their tentacles turn gray with shock. All cargo permit requirements were being reviewed. Most would be eliminated. The system that had taken them centuries to build was being torn down in a day. Guildmaster Prexmore had built his whole business around knowing how to navigate the complex permit system. He had thousands of workers whose only job was filling out forms. Now, Commander Parker was saying most of those forms were useless. At the Galactic Science Council, Dr. Green's funding orders caused chaos. Projects that had been stuck in committee for decades were suddenly approved. Scientists who had given up hope were getting messages to start work immediately. Dr. Kethvar was a Zenthari crystal scientist. He had spent 40 years trying to get approval for his faster-than-light communication project. The old council said it was too risky. Dr. Green's message was simple. Start building. Here's your budget. Let us know what you need. Within hours, every major news service in the galaxy was talking about the humans. Some were excited. Others were terrified. Many didn't know what to think. The Zenthari Council called an emergency meeting. Council Prime Vexthal's crystal body was flickering with stress patterns. They have been in charge for 2 days, he said. 2 days. We used to take 2 months just to decide what color to paint the meeting rooms. Perhaps we should, intervene, suggested Council Member Ithral. Explain to them how things are supposed to work. With what authority? Vexthal asked. They are the supreme coordinators now. We gave them that power. On the human command ship, the ESS Unity, Captain Amy Foster was getting ready for her first meeting with alien fleet commanders. She had fought in Earth's water wars and the Mars Rebellion, but commanding aliens was going to be different. The meeting room was full of beings she had only seen in pictures. Commander Zixtal looked like a tall, thin human but with silver skin and no hair. Captain Mordak was a Corvin, built like a tank with armor plates instead of skin. Fleet Leader Yith was a gas being in a clear suit shifting colors as she talked. Welcome, everyone, Amy said. I know this is new for all of us, but we're going to make it work. First thing we need to do is see what your ships can do. I'm setting up combat scenarios for next week. Combat scenarios? Zixtal's voice was high with worry. My ship is a science vessel. We study plants and rocks. Then you'll learn to fight while studying plants and rocks, Amy said. War doesn't wait for you to have the right ship. Captain Mordak made a sound like rocks grinding together. For Corvins, that was laughter. I like this human, he said. Finally, someone who wants to see real action. Meanwhile, Steve Parker was in a meeting with trade representatives. The room was full of angry aliens who didn't understand why humans wanted to change everything so fast. These permits exist for good reasons, Prexmore was saying. His tentacles waved angrily. Without proper documentation, how do we know what's in each cargo container? How do we prevent smuggling? How do we collect taxes? Simple, Steve said. He pulled up a chart on the wall screen. Random inspections instead of checking everything. Digital tracking instead of paper forms. Automatic tax collection instead of manual processing. We can cut processing time by 90% and catch more criminals at the same time. The aliens looked at the chart like it was going to explode. They had been doing things the same way for centuries. The idea of changing everything overnight made them nervous. This is too fast, said Trade Minister Voxek. What if something goes wrong? Then we fix it, Steve said. That's what humans do. We try things, we learn from mistakes, we make them better. Back in the science labs, Dr. Green was having the time of her life. She had more funding than Earth's entire space. Program and scientists who had been working on problems for longer than humans had existed. Dr. Kethvar, she said, looking at the crystal being's project plans. This communication system of yours, how fast could we build a prototype? With proper funding and no bureaucratic delays? Perhaps 6 months? You have both. What if we added human manufacturing techniques, our automated systems? Kethavar's crystals flickered with excitement. Then, perhaps 3 months. But the other council members said it was too dangerous. The energy requirements could overload entire star systems if something goes wrong. That's what emergency shutdown systems are for, Rachel said. We'll build in safeguards. Lots of them. But we're going to build this thing. By the end of the week, the galaxy was buzzing with activity. Ships that hadn't moved in years were heading to training grounds. Factories were starting up production lines that had been idle for decades. Research labs were working around the clock. The Galactic Council was getting hourly reports instead of their usual monthly summaries. Most of the council members didn't know how to process that much information. They were used to having time to think about everything slowly and carefully. Council Prime. Vexthal stared at the flood of data coming across his screens. Ship movements, trade route changes, research breakthroughs, new construction projects. In 1 week, humans had generated more activity than the Zenthari had managed in 50 years. What have we done? He whispered to himself. His aide, a younger Zenthari named Pixtel, was reading through the latest reports. The humans approved 17 new research projects today. They started construction on 3 new trade stations. Admiral Nelson's War. Games begin tomorrow with over 2,000 ships participating. Vexthal's crystal body dimmed. In our 400 years of leadership, we never had more than 100 ships in one place at the same time. Should we contact President Brooks? Pixtel asked. Suggest they slow down? Vexthal thought about it. The humans weren't breaking any laws. They weren't hurting anyone. They were just moving faster than anyone had ever moved before. No, he said finally. Let us see where this leads. We wanted change. We are certainly getting it. 3 weeks after humans took control, General Krastok made his move. He commanded the Corvan Empire's military forces. For months, he had been planning to take over the Epsilon sector. It was full of rare metals that the Corvans needed for their war machines. Kraz, talk, was old and smart. He had studied how the Galactic Council worked for decades. When the Zenthari were in charge, it took them 6 months to even discuss military action. By that time, any invasion would be finished. The attacking force would have what they wanted and could negotiate from a position of strength. Send the fleet to Epsilon 7, Krastok ordered his commanders. Take the mining stations. Secure the asteroid fields. By the time the Council decides what to do, we will own everything. His fleet was impressive. 200 warships, each one built for fighting. The Corvans were one of the few species that still believed in having a strong military. Their ships had thick armor and powerful weapons. Most other species had converted their military vessels into exploration ships or cargo haulers. The attack began at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. Corvan ships dropped out of hyperspace around 3 different mining stations. They surrounded each one and demanded surrender. The mining crews, mostly peaceful Altarians and Zerians, had no choice but to give up. Within 6 hours, Krastok controlled the entire Epsilon sector. His ships were setting up defensive positions. His troops were taking inventory of the valuable metals they had captured. Everything was going according to plan. Then the reports started coming in. General, his communications officer said, we're getting signals from multiple human ships entering the sector. How many? Krastok asked. 12 so far, sir. But more are arriving every few minutes. Krastok frowned. 12 ships wasn't enough to threaten his fleet. What kind of ships? Mixed types, sir. Some human vessels, but also Altarian cruisers. Zerion cargo ships with weapons attached, even some Zenthari research vessels. Research vessels? Krastok couldn't believe it. What are scientists going to do? Study us to death? His aide pointed at the tactical screen. Sir, there are now 47 ships in the sector. More are still arriving. General Paul Ryan was commanding the response from his flagship, the ESS Defiance. He had been a Marine before becoming a general. He was used to making quick decisions. Under pressure. When the alert came in about the Corvan attack, he didn't wait for orders from Earth. He started making calls. Captain Foster, he said into his communicator. How fast can you get to Epsilon? 18 hours at maximum speed, Amy replied. But sir, we only have 8 combat-ready ships in this sector. Then we better find some friends, Paul said. Start calling everyone. Anyone who wants to help stop pirates from stealing their neighbor's property. The response surprised everyone, including Paul. Captain Zixtal, the nervous Altarian commander, was the first to volunteer. Those mining stations belong to my people, he said. We will not let bullies take what is ours. Trademaster Plex Moore was angry about the attack on Zerion cargo ships. The Corvans think they can steal from us, he said. My traders may not be warriors, but we know how to fight when we need to. Even Dr. Kethvar volunteered his research vessel. My ship has new experimental shields, the crystal being explained. Perhaps it is time to test them under real conditions. Within 12 hours, Paul had assembled a fleet of 73 ships. It wasn't the biggest fleet in galactic history, but it was the most mixed. Warriors and scientists, traders and explorers, all working together for the first time in centuries. Kraz, quote, talk, watched the approaching fleet with growing concern. His intelligence report said humans were weak, their ships were small, and their military was inexperienced. But the fleet heading toward him looked dangerous. The ships flew in tight formations. They responded to signals instantly. They moved like they had been working together for years instead of hours. General, his tactical officer reported, the human fleet is requesting our immediate surrender. Our surrender? Krastok roared. We have them outnumbered almost 3-1. Yes, sir. But they're not acting like they're outnumbered. Paul Ryan's message was simple and direct. General Krastok, you have illegally attacked civilian targets and stolen private property. You have 30 minutes to return everything. You took and withdraw from this sector. If you refuse, we will remove you by force. Krastok sent back his own message. General Ryan, you are new to galactic politics. We Corvins take what we need. If you want these stations back, come and take them. Gladly, Paul replied. The battle began at 14:30 Galactic Standard Time. The Corvin fleet arranged itself in a traditional defensive formation around the mining stations. They expected the human fleet to approach slowly and cautiously, trying to minimize losses. Instead, the human fleet split into multiple groups and attacked from 6 directions at once. Captain Foster led the main assault, while smaller groups hit the Corvin flanks. The mixed alien ships followed the human lead, adapting to the fast-moving battle faster than anyone thought possible. Commander Zixtal found himself flying alongside Captain Mordak, a Corvin who had defected to join the human fleet. This is insane, Zixtal said over the radio. We're flying straight at their biggest guns. That's what makes it work, Mordak replied. They expect us to be careful. Instead, we hit them so hard and fast they can't react. The Corvin defense began to crumble. Their ships were built for toe-to-toe fighting, not for dealing with enemies that attacked from everywhere at once. General Ryan's forces moved like a swarm, hitting hard and then moving before the Corvins could hit back. Dr. Kethavar's research vessel proved to be a nasty surprise. His experimental shields reflected energy weapons back at the ships that fired them. Fascinating, he said, as Corvin lasers bounced off his ship and hit their own vessels. The resonance frequency is even more effective than I calculated. Trade. Master Pleximore used his cargo ship's heavy lifting equipment to grab Corvin fighters and throw them into asteroid fields. These loading claws were designed to move metal, he announced proudly. Corvin ships are made of metal. After 6 hours of fighting, General Krastok realized he was going to lose. His fleet was scattered. Half his ships were damaged or destroyed. The humans and their allies were still fighting at full strength. Worse, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. General Ryan, he sent a message on an open channel. I request terms for surrender. Simple terms, Paul replied immediately. Complete withdrawal from Epsilon Sector, return all stolen materials, reparations for damage to civilian stations, and a promise not to try this again. And if I refuse? Paul's next message was broadcast to every ship in the sector. Then we continue this fight until your fleet is scrap metal floating in space. Your choice, General. Krastok looked around his bridge. His officers were wounded. His ship's systems were failing. Through the viewport, he could see human and alien ships working together to rescue Corvin survivors from destroyed vessels. Accept your terms, he said. The aftermath surprised everyone even more than the battle had. Instead of treating the Corvins as enemies, the humans immediately offered medical aid and rescue assistance. General Ryan himself transported over to Krastok's damaged flagship to personally escort wounded Corvin soldiers to human medical ships. Why are you helping us? Krastok asked, as human medics worked on his injured troops. We attacked you. We tried to steal from your allies. Because the war is over, Paul said simply. Now we work together to fix the mess it made. That's what civilized beings do. Within 24 hours, human engineering teams were helping repair damaged Corvin ships. Zerion traders were providing food and supplies for the long journey home. Altarian scientists were treating wounded soldiers from both sides. The mining stations were back in operation within a week. But more importantly, the Corvan Empire had gained something they hadn't expected: respect for their former enemies and new friends among species they had never worked with before. General Krastok's final report to his government was short. The humans do not fight like anyone else. They do not think like anyone else. They do not make peace like anyone else. I recommend we avoid future conflicts with them and their allies. Back on Council Station, the Galactic Council members watched recordings of the battle in stunned silence. A crisis that should have taken months to resolve had been handled in less than 2 days. A war that could have spread across multiple sectors had been stopped before it really began. 37 hours. Council Prime Vexthal said quietly. The entire conflict lasted 37 hours. From first attack to final surrender and the beginning of reconstruction aid. His aide, Pixtel, was reading through the reports. The human fleet included volunteers from 16 different species. They worked together like they had been training for years. Have they been training together? For exactly 1 week, sir. Admiral Nelson's war games had just begun when the crisis started. Vextal's crystal body dimmed with what humans would have recognized as exhaustion. 1 week of training, and they created the most effective multi-species military force in galactic history. Sir, Pixtel said carefully, perhaps we underestimated what humans would do with the power we gave them. Perhaps, Vexthal agreed. The question now is, what will they do next? 1 month after giving humans control of the galaxy, Council Prime Vexthal called an emergency meeting. He needed to talk to the other council members about what they had done. The problem was finding them. For 400 years, the Zenthari Council had met in the same room at the same time every week. The meetings were slow and careful. Everyone knew what to expect. Now trying to gather the council members was like trying to catch smoke with his crystalline hands. Where is Trade Representative Morgix? Vexthal asked his aide. He is in the Outer Rim, sir, Pixtel replied. He is trying to understand the new human trade routes. Apparently cargo ships are now making runs that used to take 6 months, in just 3 weeks. And Cultural Minister Yenthal? She is on 17 different worlds, sir. The humans started something called cultural exchange programs. Every species is supposed to send teachers and students to learn about each other. Military advisor Kexron. He is with Admiral Nelson's training fleet. He says he needs to understand how humans fight so fast. Last week they conducted war games with 200 ships. This week it's 500. Vexthal felt his crystal structure vibrate with stress. In the old days, finding all the council members was easy. They were either in their offices or in their homes. Now they were scattered across the galaxy, trying to keep up with human changes. When he finally gathered enough members for a meeting, the conversation was not what he expected. The humans have restructured our entire government, complained Justice Minister Vethak. Instead of the traditional committee system, they created something called task forces. These groups actually make decisions instead of just talking about them. Senator Claire Adams cleared our court backlog, said legal advisor Orthel. Cases that had been waiting for decades were resolved in days. She said the old system was designed to avoid making decisions, not to solve problems. That's not how justice works, Vethak protested. Complex cases require careful thought, years of study, multiple appeals. Tell that to the millions of beings who finally got their legal problems solved. Orthel replied. Science advisor Lether was reading from a data pad. Dr. Rachel Green has approved more research projects in 1 month than we approved in 50 years. The galactic science budget increased by 3,000%. That's impossible, Vexthal said. Apparently not. She eliminated all the application committees. Now scientists just send their ideas directly to her office. If the idea is good and safe, they get funding immediately. What about review processes, safety committees, impact studies? She says, those happen while the research is being done, not before it starts. Her exact words were, you can't study the safety of something that doesn't exist yet. Engineering coordinator Wextel looked up from his own reports. Matt Torres started construction on the Galactic Communication Network. He says it will connect every inhabited world with instant messaging. That project was estimated to take 200 years, Wexthal said weakly. His timeline says 15 years. He's using new construction methods and automated building systems. He's also hiring workers from every species in the galaxy. Hiring? Workers? Paying them? Apparently, humans believe that people work better when you give them money instead of just ordering them to help. The meeting continued for hours. Every council member had stories about humans changing things that had worked the same way for centuries. The changes weren't bad exactly. In fact, most of them seemed to be working better than the old ways. That was what made it so scary. The Galactic Defense Force has never been stronger, military advisor Kexron reported. Admiral Nelson's joint training programs have ships from different species working together like they're part of the same fleet. Combat readiness is up 400%. Crime in the major trade routes has dropped to almost zero, Security Chief Nixall added. Commander Parker's new patrol system uses fast ships instead of fixed stations. Pirates can't predict where the patrols will be. Medical response times have improved dramatically, Health Coordinator Gexham said. Dr. Lisa Morgan created mobile medical fleets that can reach emergency sites in hours instead of days. Vexthal's crystal body was flickering, rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. So everything is working better? Much better, his advisors agreed. Then why do I feel like we've lost control of our own government? The answer came from an unexpected source. Council member Dex Ara, the oldest of the Zenthari, had been quiet during the meeting. Now she spoke in a voice that sounded like crystal, bells ringing. Because we have lost control, she said simply. We spent 400 years building a government designed to prevent change. The humans have built a government designed to create change. We cannot control something we do not understand. Then what do we do? Vexthal asked. We adapt or we become irrelevant. Meanwhile, in the new Human Command Center, President Kevin Brooks was having his own problems. The council building had been too small for the way humans worked, so they had built their own facility. It was connected to the old council chambers but designed for speed and efficiency. We have a problem, his chief of staff Janet Miller told him. The other species are having trouble keeping up with our changes. What kind of trouble? The Zenthari delegation requested stress leave. They say the constant activity is causing their crystal structures to develop anxiety fractures. The Xerian trade representatives have filed formal complaints about excessive efficiency. And the Altarian Cultural Ministry says our exchange programs are happening too fast for their people to process. Kevin rubbed his forehead. Are we hurting anyone? Not exactly. But we're overwhelming them. They're not used to this pace of change. Secretary of Science Rachel Green came into the office carrying a stack of data pads. Kevin, we need to talk about the research programs. What about them? They're working too well. Dr. Keithavar's communication system is ahead of schedule. The Altarian terraforming project is showing amazing results. The Xerian trade route optimization is cutting travel times in half. That sounds good. It is good. It's so good that it's scaring everyone. The other species keep asking us to slow down. They say we're changing things too fast. Janet pulled up a report on her tablet. We're getting formal requests from 12 different species asking us to consider the traditional pace of galactic development. Kevin looked out the window at the busy spaceport below. Human ships were working alongside alien vessels. Construction. Crews with workers from 6 different species were building new docking facilities. It looked like controlled chaos, but everything was getting done. Are we breaking any laws? He asked. No, Janet said. Everything we're doing is within the Supreme Coordinator authority. Are we hurting anyone? No. Crime is down, trade is up, and we haven't had a single war since the Corvin incident. Are people happier? Rachel consulted her data pad. Satisfaction surveys from the member worlds show happiness levels at the highest point in recorded history. Then what's the problem? The problem, said a new voice, is that change is scary even when it's good change. They turned to see Ambassador Jake Morrison coming into the office. He had just returned from a tour of the outer worlds. "I spent 2 weeks talking to local leaders," Jake said. "They love the results we're getting. Their worlds are more prosperous than they've ever been. Their people have opportunities they never had before, but they're also terrified." "Of what?" "Of us. Of the pace we're setting. They've been doing things the same way for thousands of years. We changed their entire civilization in a month." Kevin sat down heavily in his chair. "So they want us to slow down?" "Some do. Others want us to speed up even more. The problem is that nobody knows what to expect from us next." "What do you think we should do?" Jake smiled. "I think we should do what humans do best. We should solve problems. The other species are scared because they don't understand how we work. So let's help them understand." "How?" "Communication. Explanation. Show them that we're not changing things just to change them. We're fixing problems that have been ignored for centuries. We're making the galaxy work better for everyone." Rachel nodded. "We could set up information sessions, explain our methods, show them the data that proves our changes are working." "And," Janet added, "we could involve them more in the decision-making process. Let them help us plan the changes, instead of just reacting to them." Kevin thought about it. The humans had been given control of the galaxy, but that didn't mean they had to control everything themselves. Maybe the best way to lead was to help everyone else become better leaders, too. "Set it up," he said. "Information sessions, planning committees, communication programs. Let's make sure everyone understands what we're doing and why we're doing it." "And if they still want us to slow down?" Jake asked. Kevin looked out the window again at all the activity below. Ships taking off and landing, construction crews building, new facilities. People from dozens of species working together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. "Then we'll have to explain to them that slowing down isn't an option," he said. "The galaxy has problems that need fixing. We can either fix them fast or fix them slow, but we're going to fix them." As the meeting ended, none of them realized that their conversation was being recorded by Council intelligence systems. The breaking point came when Director Kyle Bennett announced the Galactic Improvement Initiative. He stood in front of the largest gathering of species leaders in galactic history. The new Council amphitheater could hold representatives from every world in the galaxy. It had taken human engineers just 6 weeks to build it. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications," Kyle said with a smile that made several alien delegates nervous. "Thank you for coming to this presentation. Today we're going to talk about the future of our galaxy." Council Prime Vexthal sat in the front row, his crystal body dim with worry. Around him, hundreds of other species representatives shifted uncomfortably. They had learned to be cautious when humans used words like future and improvement. Kyle activated a holographic display that filled the air above the audience. It showed the entire galaxy, with trade routes, communication networks, and population centers clearly marked. "This is our galaxy today," Kyle said. "Beautiful, diverse, full of life and potential, but also inefficient, slow, limited by old ways of thinking." He pressed a button and the display changed. New trade routes appeared in bright blue lines. Communication networks spread like spider webs between stars. New colonies appeared on previously uninhabited worlds. "This is our galaxy. In 10 years, Kyle continued. "With the Galactic Improvement Initiative, we can triple productivity, eliminate poverty, and bring every world into direct contact with every other world." A Xerian trade representative raised a tentacle. "Mr. Bennett, these projections seem optimistic." "Optimistic?" Kyle laughed. "Sir, these are conservative estimates based on what we've already accomplished in 1 month. We've increased trade efficiency by 300%. We've reduced crime by 90%. We've solved territorial disputes that have lasted for centuries." "But at what cost?" asked a Zenthari council member. "Change for the sake of change is not always wise." Kyle's expression became more serious. "The cost of not changing is much higher. Do you know how many beings die each year because medical supplies move too slowly through outdated shipping systems? Do you know how many conflicts start because different species can't communicate quickly enough to solve simple misunderstandings? He brought up new data on the holographic display, numbers that made several delegates gasp. 12 million preventable deaths last year due to slow emergency response. 800,000 beings living in poverty because they can't access job opportunities on other worlds. 17 wars that could have been prevented with faster communication. The amphitheater was completely quiet now. The Galactic Improvement Initiative isn't about change for the sake of change, Kyle said. It's about saving lives. It's about giving everyone in the galaxy a chance at a better future. He pressed another button. The display showed construction, projects, research facilities, and new colonies spreading across the galaxy like flowers blooming. Phase 1 begins next month. We're going to build a hyperspace highway system that connects every major world. Travel time between any 2 points in the galaxy will be reduced from months to days. Several delegates started talking at once. The idea of rebuilding the entire galactic transportation system in a few years seemed impossible. Phase 2, Kyle continued over the noise, involves establishing emergency response stations in every sector. Medical emergencies, natural disasters, pirate attacks. Help will arrive in hours instead of weeks. Phase 3 is economic integration. Every being in the galaxy will have access to job opportunities, education, and trade markets, regardless of which world they were born on. By now, half the audience was on their feet, talking excitedly or arguing loudly. The Zenthari delegates were flickering rapidly with stress. The Corvin representatives were roaring with what might have been approval or anger. It was hard to tell with Corvin's. Kyle waited for quiet, then activated the final part of his presentation. Phase 4, he said, is what we call the Great Expansion. There are over 1 million uninhabited worlds in this galaxy that could support life with proper terraforming. We're going to make them all habitable. The amphitheater exploded into chaos. Delegates were shouting in dozens of different languages. Some were excited about the possibilities. Others were terrified by the scope of what humans were proposing. Dr. Helen Ross took the stage next. She was Earth's top physicist, and she had news that would make Kyle's presentation seem small by comparison. "If I could have your attention," she said. Her voice was quiet, but something in it made everyone stop talking. "While Director Bennett has been working on improving our current galaxy, my team has been working on something else. We've achieved faster-than-light communication." The song amphitheater went dead silent. "Not just faster than the current system," Helen continued. "Instantaneous, real-time communication across any distance. We can now talk to someone on the other side of the galaxy as easily as talking to someone in the same room." She activated her own holographic display. It showed test results, energy readings, and communication logs that proved her claim. But that's not all. We've also developed new faster-than-light travel technology. Our test ships can cross the galaxy in weeks instead of months. Soon, it will be days. Council Prime Vexthal stood up slowly. His crystal body was so dim, it was almost transparent. "Dr. Ross, you are describing technology that we believed was centuries away from development." "You believed it was centuries away because you were moving too slowly," Helen replied. "When you remove bureaucratic delays and fund research properly, amazing things happen quickly." A Corvin military advisor stood up. "With this technology, humans could conquer the entire galaxy in a matter of days." "We could," Helen agreed. "But why would we want to? Conquering is inefficient. It's much better to have willing partners than unwilling subjects." Ambassador Nick Thompson took the stage for the final presentation. He was Earth's specialist in first contact situations. His news was the most shocking of all. "While we've been improving our own galaxy," Nick said, "we've also been reaching out to our neighbors. We've made contact with 17 different galaxies." The amphitheater erupted again, but Nick kept talking over the noise. "The Andromeda Galaxy has agreed to a trade partnership. The Whirlpool Galaxy wants to exchange scientific information. 3 smaller galaxies have asked to join our communication network. "This is moving too fast," shouted a Zenthari representative. "We need time to consider the implications." "Time is exactly what we don't have," Nick replied. "While we've been sitting here debating changes for centuries, entire civilizations have been rising and falling around us. We're not just improving our galaxy, we're making sure it survives in a universe full of other galactic civilizations." The final speaker was Colonel Beth Price, Earth's chief terraforming engineer. Her presentation was the one that finally broke the council's composure. "The great expansion isn't just about making new colonies," Beth said cheerfully. "We've identified over 50 uninhabitable worlds that we can transform into garden paradises. Dead rocks that we can turn into beautiful homes for millions of beings." She showed before and after projections of barren worlds transformed into green, living planets with oceans, forests, and cities. "The best part is, we can do it fast. With our new automated systems, we can terraform a world in 5 years instead of 500. "This is madness," whispered Council Prime Vexthal. "This is efficiency," Beth replied. "Why should anyone have to live in overcrowded colonies when we can build new worlds? It's just a matter of moving some dirt around and adding some water." She said it like she was talking about redecorating a room instead of reshaping entire planets. After the presentations ended, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. They met in private without any humans present. "They have to be stopped," said Military Advisor Kexron. "This is too much change too fast. The galaxy will tear itself apart." "How do we stop them?" asked Council Prime Vexthal. "They are the Supreme Coordinators. We gave them that authority." Justice Minister Vethak had been reading the legal documents. "There is a provision for removing Supreme Coordinators if they exceed their authority." "What authority have they exceeded?" asked Cultural Minister Yenthal. "Everything they've done is technically legal." "Then we change the law," Vexthal said desperately. Legal Advisor Orthel shook his head. "The humans rewrote the succession rules on their first day in office. The position of Supreme Coordinator is now permanent until voluntarily relinquished." "So we ask them to step down voluntarily," suggested Trade Representative Morgix. "Have you met these humans?" Vethak asked. "They think reshaping planets is a fun weekend project. Do you really think they'll give up control of the galaxy just because we asked nicely?" The meeting went on for hours, but every suggestion led to the same conclusion. The humans were now permanently in charge, and there was nothing the council could do about it. The next morning, President Kevin Brooks held a press conference. Representatives from across the galaxy attended, along with reporters from hundreds of news services. "I know there are concerns about the pace of change in our galaxy," Kevin said. "Some people think we're moving too fast. Some think we should slow down and be more careful." He paused and looked directly at the camera that was broadcasting to every world in the galaxy.